Hey everyone, welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into the absolute bedrock foundation of information security. We're talking about the CIA Triad. And look, this isn't just some boring 101 concept. It's the architectural framework that literally dictates how every single modern digital system is built, managed, and eventually breached.
So let's start with a really basic question. What actually makes digital information truly secure? I mean, we usually just think of firewalls, right? Or encryption protocols, or maybe that annoying multi-factor authentication on our phones. But true security? It isn't just about building higher and higher walls. It's actually this really delicate and honestly often frustrating balancing act of three totally distinct principles that engineers have to constantly negotiate.
Here's our roadmap for today's Explainer. We'll start with the foundations of information security, then unpack the triad itself. C is for confidentiality, I is for integrity, A is for availability, and finally, we'll wrap up with balancing the CIA triad.
Okay, part one, foundations of information security and the core philosophy behind it all. You see, the CIA Triad isn't just some compliance checklist or random set of rules you memorize and forget. It's really more like a three-legged stool. Whether you're securing a massive global enterprise cloud or just a tiny standalone database, security architects are relying on this exact model. Think about it. If any one of those three legs is broken or missing, the whole stool tips over and your entire security posture fails. So our goal today is to deeply, truly understand these three letters so you can see exactly how this framework supports the weight of our entire digital world. Moving right along to part two. C is for confidentiality, or keeping secrets safe. Confidentiality is essentially the principle of keeping data hidden from unauthorized access. Now, we experience this every single day with our simple passwords, right? But at an enterprise scale, it's a whole different beast. We're talking about incredibly robust encryption algorithms and super strict identity access management. It's about ensuring that highly sensitive data, stuff like proprietary source code, unreleased financial earnings, or highly classified communications, stays entirely opaque to anyone who isn't explicitly in that established circle of trust. Because the core mandate here is absolutely simple, keeping data hidden from unauthorized access. Without this first pillar, the whole concept of a secure infrastructure just crumbles to dust. I mean, if confidentiality is breached, your proprietary algorithms, massive medical databases, critical financial records, they're all just out in the open. The fallout from losing this single pillar can literally collapse a major company overnight.
All right, part three. I is for integrity, which is all about keeping data accurate. So integrity is the principle of ensuring your data remains entirely accurate and, crucially, unchanged. This is really about deep structural trust. For example, think about those infamous cyber warfare incidents, kind of like the Stuxnet worm. The attackers there didn't just steal data. Instead, they subtly altered the rotational speeds of physical centrifuges while simultaneously feeding completely normal readouts back to the monitoring systems. That is terrifying, right? You need absolute certainty that your data hasn't been quietly poisoned or maliciously altered while in transit. And there really is a very distinct line between keeping data hidden and keeping it accurate. Picture this. Imagine you lock a highly sensitive corporate financial report behind top-tier AES 256 encryption. Okay, boom, you have perfect confidentiality. But what if a bad actor manages to alter just a few critical decimal points on that ledger right before it actually gets encrypted? Well, your data remains completely hidden, sure, but it's mathematically compromised. You have zero integrity. You see, you absolutely need both. Next up, part four. A is for availability or accessing data when needed. Now, this brings us to a huge operational flaw if we just stop at hiding and securing our data. Availability is the critical guarantee that your systems are actually running and accessible exactly when you demand them. You could have a perfectly encrypted, totally flawlessly accurate system, but if a massive DDoS attack, that's a distributed denial of service attack, if that takes your servers completely offline, well, that data is entirely useless to the people who actually need it. Because seriously, what good is a secret if you cannot access it? Just think about the absolute operational paralysis of a major hospital system getting hit by ransomware. The patient records, they might remain perfectly confidential, their integrity totally intact. But if those emergency room doctors are locked out and literally can't access them to administer critical life-saving treatments, then the security architecture has fundamentally failed. Bottom line, availability matters just as much as confidentiality and integrity. And that brings us to part five. Balancing the CIA triad and the built-in tension of it all. When you look at these three elements side by side,
confidentiality for privacy, integrity for accuracy, and availability for reliability, you start to see this really fascinating built-in engineering tension. Because they form a triad, they naturally inherently pull against one another. Maximizing one of these pillars almost always comes at the direct expense, or at least causes some heavy friction, with another one. Let me put it this way. If you want 100% perfect confidentiality, you could just print out your sensitive data, lock it inside a titanium safe, drop it straight into the Mariana Trench, and systematically melt the only key. Congratulations! Your data is flawlessly secure, but you now have exactly 0% availability. Actually, scratch that, it's more like negative availability. By over-indexing on locking the data down to such an extreme degree, you fundamentally destroyed its usefulness.
So, the true goal of the triad is to find a dynamic, carefully calculated balance based on very specific business needs. For instance, a massive public e-commerce platform cares deeply about availability and integrity to process millions of rapid transactions, right? But they place far less emphasis on confidentiality for their totally public products catalog. Conversely, a military intelligence database, that flips the priority entirely, prioritizing confidentiality way above all else. Real security isn't about perfect isolation. It's about making highly intelligent, constant trade-offs.
So, to wrap this up, take a look at the apps running on your phone right now. Your banking app, your secure messaging, your health tracker. Which part of the CIA triad do you think is currently most at risk for you? And honestly, more importantly, how well are the engineers behind those apps balancing that exact tension on your behalf? It really kind of changes the way you view that screen in your hand, doesn't it? Anyway, thanks so much for watching this explainer, and keep questioning how your digital world is built. Catch you next time.